The landscape of the NBA is currently flooded with more individual talent than at any point in its history. Yet, within this abundance, a specific tier of player creates a persistent, perplexing dilemma. At the very apex, the hierarchy is unmistakable. The Jokic's, Giannis's, and Doncic's of the world operate with a dominant, consistent, and undeniable authority. However, when you shift your gaze just outside the consensus top 15, the clarity dissolves into chaos. Over the last half-decade, we have witnessed a recurring cycle. Players flirt with elite status, brushing against the door of the top 10, only to abruptly vanish from the conversation entirely. One season, they appear untouchable, foundational pieces. The next, their standing plummets, and they are scarcely ranked among the top 50. The volatility is breathtaking. Narratives reverse overnight. A player's tangible impact is questioned. Their availability becomes a central, frustrating headline. What was once hailed as limitless potential begins to sound like a hollow, worn-out excuse. Crucially, the league's patience operates on a timer. Once a player crosses the threshold of age 26, the calculus changes. You are no longer a prospect brimming with promise, you are a veteran. If your game remains enigmatic and unfulfilled by that point, the benefit of the doubt evaporates. Here are 10 star-caliber players who embody this confusion, gifted enough to dominate stretches but inconsistent enough to leave fans, analysts, and front offices perpetually scratching their heads. We begin with the most recent seismic shift, Trae Young, the newly acquired guard for the Washington Wizards. His career trajectory following the magical 2021 Conference Finals run has been nothing short of a travesty. Operating in a modern era defined by pace, space, and positional size, where opposing lineups regularly feature 5 players standing 6 feet 5 inches or taller, Young's defensive limitations are not just a weakness, they are a systemic liability that is relentlessly exploited. He is a proven negative on that end of the floor, a reality now impossible to ignore. This evident flaw was starkly highlighted by the simultaneous rise of Jalen Johnson in Atlanta, a versatile, toolsy forward who blossomed into an all-star, presenting the archetype of a modern franchise cornerstone on a winning team. The Hawks' decision-making spoke volumes. They prioritized the steady, aging presence of C.J. McCollum and a role player in Corey Kispert over building around Young, and did so without attaching future draft picks. The organization implicitly chose a clearer, if lower ceiling, path over the chaos of the Trae Young experience. For Young, the trade represents the worst possible outcome for his evolving legacy. Attached to swirling rumors for 2 years, he now carries the burden of not winning a playoff series in half a decade, a clock that continues to tick. Can he even steer a Washington roster, in the midst of a rebuild, to the postseason, especially as younger, more complete guards have already surged past him in the league's pecking order? Averaging his lowest point total since his rookie year and playing a reduced role at just 28 minutes per game, the concerns are mounting. His style remains extremely ball-dominant, with negligible off-ball utility, placing him at the opposite end of the spectrum from a revolutionary like Stephen Curry. In truth, Young is merely a mediocre outside shooter who is forced to handle immense creation burdens. His efficiency around the rim has declined, compounding the issue of his size disadvantage. He is hunted defensively in every matchup. With only a year remaining on his contract, he faces the monumental task of proving himself all over again. It would not be shocking to see the Wizards, with their history of committing supermax contracts to homegrown stars like John Wall and Bradley Beal, offer him a similar deal. The critical question is whether he will simply compile empty-calorie statistics on a struggling team. A few years from now, the basketball world will have a definitive answer on whether Trae Young is a Hall of Fame talent or merely the next spicy topic for a barren August offseason debate. LaMelo Ball represents a different shade of confusion, one painted with flashes of brilliance and extended absences. He is now 5 missed games away from disqualification for all NBA awards, a symbolic threshold for a player of his supposed caliber. At 24 years old, he has yet to demonstrate he can be the centerpiece of a winning operation. He is arguably the league's most unpredictable talent, an erratic stylist with every offensive tool imaginable. His team, the Charlotte Hornets, remains mired in a rebuild with no discernible end in sight. This uniquely gifted, AE86-inspired star has only surpassed 70 games once in 6 seasons and hasn't played a meaningful game past March since 2022. His funky set-shot form remains. Alongside Luka Doncic, he is one of the league's premier tough-shot makers. Yet, the relentless cycle of ankle injuries has stunted any clear growth in a specific area of his game. He is still a lazy defender, lacking physical strength, easily displaced by more rugged opponents. He often rushes into inefficient attempts and fails to simplify the game for his teammates, with his bad habits accumulating in an environment that has never provided him with a stable, authoritative coach. The fundamental question persists: can LaMelo Ball play a sustainable, winning style of basketball? Instead, he often appears to be streetballing for a team without an identity, seemingly having fun whether winning or losing, joking on the bench during blowouts. If he were viewed as a serious franchise pillar, the Hornets would not be meticulously restricting his minutes, likely in a bid to avoid another injury setback. For this season, it may not matter, as the team is going nowhere. The emergence of rookie Kobe Cup provides a faint silver lining. With each passing day and each missed game, LaMelo Ball becomes a more plausible and intriguing trade asset. Ja Morant of the Memphis Grizzlies authored one of the league's most exciting ascensions, taking a massive leap in his third year to enter the top 10 player discussion. That was followed by a precipitous fall, taking 4 steps back. At this rate, a few more missteps could see him out of the league's elite conversation entirely. He is becoming the next major name on the trade block. Morant is the archetype of a player who produces superstar-caliber highlights but is undermined by wild inconsistency and a troubling injury history. He can drop 40 points on December 30th, then follow it with a 7-4-18, 16-point clunker against the Lakers. After looking every bit a Derrick Rose-level MVP candidate in his third season, his peak has alarmingly faded, a familiar story for undersized, athletic scoring guards who rely heavily on their physical gifts. The bleak but valid question arises: will Ja Morant even be in the league after age 30? Initially projected as a franchise savior, a great kid with a relentless work ethic, injuries and off-court behavior have rendered him an afterthought in the national conversation. His game looks like it has aged a decade. Astonishingly, a 37-year-old Russell Westbrook often plays with more impactful effort than the current version of Ja in 2026. This stems purely from vigor and intent. Ever since his Fine in the West proclamation, which he has failed to back up, his trajectory has altered. In April 2022, many believed Memphis was poised for at least one finals appearance in the subsequent 3 years, a trajectory now belonging to Oklahoma City. Morant's reckless style as a non-shooter, combined with being far too injury-prone, has resulted in significant playoff absences. Many of his most ardent supporters must confront a simple truth: he is no longer a viable number 1 option on a contender. Some believe he could reset and average 27 points per game as a top option on a different team. Others see him strictly as a second star, while a growing contingent doubts his presence and attitude are conducive to any team with serious title aspirations. His teammate, Jaren Jackson Jr., presents his own bewildering case. How does a player listed at 6 feet 11 inches average a mere 5 rebounds per game? He has never averaged more than 7 in any season. Now 26 years old, a solid top 35 player, has he reached his offensive ceiling? His inconsistency is staggering. In the first 2 games of January, he played a combined 64 minutes and secured only 4 total rebounds. He grabbed 9 the next game. Where is his aggression? Over his last 4 games, he tallied just 17 total boards while committing 14 fouls. Memphis faces its own confusion. Can they build with him, or is a complete rebuild around Trey Jackson the necessary path? If Memphis secured a haul of draft picks for Desmond Bane, the price for Jackson Jr. could be similar to what Minnesota received for Rudy Gobert. His game, as a perimeter-oriented 6 feet 10 inches big, is a better fit for the modern game, though he lacks the smooth skill of a Kevin Durant. He stations himself on the perimeter too frequently. Despite standing nearly 7 feet tall and weighing over 240 pounds, he fails to exploit smaller defenders in the post and consistently lacks awareness on the glass. He is the type of player who would have struggled immensely in the physical 1990s and 2000s, despite his solid outside shooting. He cannot handle double teams and lacks the anticipatory skills to read plays before they develop. In reality, Jaren Jackson Jr. might project best as a fourth option on a heavyweight contender, akin to Kristaps Porzingis' role with the 2024 Boston Celtics. Darius Garland of the Cleveland Cavaliers exists in a perpetual state of ambiguity. Is he a true star? Is he overrated, underrated, or simply hiding in the shadows of backcourt mate Donovan Mitchell? Soon to be 26, he should be posting improved numbers, yet his production mirrors his second season, fluctuating between 17 and 12 points with under 7 assists. This is for a player hailed as one of the game's best passers. Before the Mitchell trade, the undersized 6 feet 1 inch point guard looked like a promising franchise centerpiece. One wonders, had the Cavaliers kept Lauri Markkanen to play the three alongside Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, would they have reached a conference final by now? Garland is capable of high-scoring outputs, averaging over 23 points per game in the 42 contests he has played without Mitchell. He risks becoming another talented player whose prime is eroded by untimely injuries. Is his ambition to become a true complementary piece, labeled as Mitchell's sidekick, or does he genuinely desire to run his own team as the primary star? The Cavaliers, with him on the books until 2028 at a significant cost, must be concerned. Another 2 missed games this season has disqualified him from All-NBA consideration. His playoff numbers against physically imposing teams like the Knicks and Pacers are deeply troubling. Along with Jarrett Allen, he has shown soft postseason tendencies. How long can an undersized guard like Garland last as an all-star caliber player? Is he destined to be a standard 17 to 21 point per game producer for the next 5 seasons? Cleveland faces a roster of difficult questions and must make hard decisions if they fail to advance past the second round. Paolo Banchero, the former #1 pick, presents the paradox of stalled momentum. He began last season on a blistering tear, appearing as a top 10 to 15 player before a right oblique injury derailed his campaign after just 5 games. He had a 50-point, 13-rebound, 9-assist masterpiece in his 4th game against Indiana. Since that explosive start, his name has cooled considerably. The Orlando Magic posted a 21-25 record with him last season and a 20-16 mark without him. Is the franchise already at a crossroads, forced to choose between him and Franz Wagner, whom many believe is the better all-around player to build around? A definitive answer may remain elusive as long as Jamal Mosley, often criticized as one of the league's worst offensive coaches, remains at the helm. Orlando's roster construction, built around 2 non-shooting power forwards, feels inherently redundant. Banchero often looks rusty and undeveloped, his handle is shaky, and he slows the offense as he methodically sets up his attacks. With a broken jump shot, he often resorts to bulldozing his way to the basket without a clear plan. He is a player who must have the ball in his hands, and his on-court chemistry with Wagner remains a work in progress. Yet, his playoff numbers against superior Boston and Cleveland teams were fantastic, 28 points and 8 rebounds per game. Perhaps he is still playing through injury this season. At 6 feet 10 inches, he must shoot better than 46% from the field. The early young LeBron comparisons have been completely dismissed. Banchero's ceiling remains high on talent alone. Could he reach top 10 status? It seems doubtful. Top 15? Absolutely. Orlando is financially committed to him long-term after his max contract kicks in next season. If the 23-year-old and the Magic fail to secure a second-round appearance, the panic button will be firmly pressed in Disneyland. Kawhi Leonard stands as the most perplexing great player of his generation. His name will not be invoked in the same breath as LeBron James, Stephen Curry, or even Kevin Durant in historical debates. When the moment demands he step up as the unequivocal leader of his team, he is too often absent, sidelined by injury, and fundamentally undependable. This has defined his career since his 2019 championship with Toronto. Ironically, his single season with the Raptors is more memorable than any of his 7 with the LA Clippers. The 2 titles he won were superbly unexpected. He wasn't in the finals MVP conversation at the start of either of those seasons. Winning the award as a 22-year-old with San Antonio was unfathomable, and his departure from the Spurs to Toronto was among the most random superstar moves in history. He played his absolute best basketball during the 2019 playoff run, cementing his top 75 status with a second finals MVP. Yet, when you examine the career ledgers, LeBron has historic statistical accumulation. Steph Curry owns a 3-point record that may never be broken. Kevin Durant is on a path to finish top 5 in all-time scoring. Meanwhile, Kawhi Leonard has fewer career points than Tobias Harris. Make it make sense. Where does he rank on pure talent? He could have solidified a top 10 all-time argument had he led the Clippers to a title. Instead, some argue he isn't even a top 40 player due to the sheer volume of games missed. After being relatively healthy this season, the NBA is undoubtedly better when Kawhi Leonard is on the floor. He has a chance to make an All-NBA first team if he crosses the 65-game threshold. He looks like a top 10 player again. But when he is hurt, the uncertainty is total. No one can predict the duration of his absence. A mere 6-time All-Star, 5 fewer than Chris Bosh, he owns more Finals MVP awards than Steph Curry. At his peak, he could battle the very best of his generation, defeating LeBron and Curry in the finals and dueling Luka's Mavericks twice. How much does the 34-year-old have left in the tank? It remains the league's greatest mystery. Lauri Markkanen holds the dubious distinction of being the longest-tenured active player to have never appeared in a postseason game. Still with the rebuilding Utah Jazz, it has been 4 years of him collecting max contracts without the accompanying pressure to win. He is, quite simply, chilling, putting up all-star numbers of 28 and 7. At a certain point, if he genuinely cares about winning, he must speak up and demand a trade. There's a reason the NBA attempted to change its tanking rules. Last season, he looked absolutely washed and overrated. Now, he is averaging a career high in points on a contract that runs through 2029, stuck on a franchise with bizarre, unserious roster construction. He is arguably the most talented player in modern memory to waste his prime on non-competitive teams. A late bloomer since leaving Chicago, he is more talented than draftmate Lauri Markkanen, but Markkanen is more remembered for his unique personality. Markkanen needs to experience at least one playoff series. Otherwise, his career will be remembered as an absolute travesty of unfulfilled opportunity. Bam Adebayo prompts a simple, frustrating question: when is he going to break out? He is averaging a typical 17 points and 10 rebounds. His statistics are virtually identical to his career norms, yet he is 28 years old, supposedly in his prime, and earning $160 million over the next 3 seasons. He is not performing like a max contract cornerstone. When many called him overrated, he proved them wrong with 2 inspirational finals runs. However, Bam Adebayo has not meaningfully improved his offensive game in 5 years. He never developed a reliable outside shot. His offensive development has been, frankly, terrible. Many Heat fans have accepted his limitations. Is he a true number 1 option? Absolutely not. But he is extremely valuable to an excellent team. He is more of a ceiling raiser, like Draymond Green, yet finds himself stuck in no man's land. Another season battling in the play-in tournament under the restrictive new CBA highlights the dilemma. No team wants to allocate supermax money to a player who isn't a bona fide superstar. Is he significantly better than Rudy Gobert? Certainly. He is too good defensively to deny the max, yet not good enough offensively for any team to feel entirely comfortable with that financial commitment. In essence, Bam is a third option on a contender at best. Paired with 2 lethal scoring co-stars, his defensive anchoring becomes invaluable. He will never crack the top 15 player discussion, forever residing in the 20 to 30 range with all due respect. Finally, Jimmy Butler arrives as the last gasp savior for the Golden State Warriors. How is he responding? He is coasting through the regular season, as is his custom, with the expectation that he will turn it on for the playoffs. However, operating in the gauntlet of the Western Conference, every game from February onward will feel like a playoff game for a Warriors team desperately fighting for postseason positioning. Averaging around 20 efficient points per game, he is being far too passive for a player earning $55 million annually. It is time to get serious. His legacy is compellingly complicated. Is he a surefire Hall of Famer? Of course, largely due to 2 improbable finals runs as the engine of those Miami teams. But he has burned bridges at every stop, forcing his way out when situations became challenging. When Stephen Curry was injured during the Minnesota series, Golden State's fate was sealed. However, Butler, depended upon as the number 1 option, averaged just 20 points over the final 4 games. The Jimmy Butler who fearlessly led Miami to the finals 3 years ago appears to be long gone. As the calendar flips to March, Golden State will be engaged in a daily fight for its playoff life, and the world will be watching to see if Jimmy Butler still has that next gear, or if his confounding career is entering its final, fading chapter.